and today on the G3 Boardroom, we wrap up our playing of My Father's Work. We have a review of the 3 generations that we've played through, and let's get right to it. Just as a little bit of background, My Father's Work, you're a mad scientist trying to cure diseases and gain victory points in various different ways by doing experiments or by building onto your mansion and things like that.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good introduction. We played for the videos. We played The Cost of Disease, which is one of the scenarios within My Father's Work. There's actually 3 different storylines that have 8 different endings each. Depending on the decisions you make, you can end up with different endings. And I played through several of them, and so you have really 24 endings right out of the box. And the app, it is an app-driven game. The app tracks these endings for you, so you know which ones you already got, which ones you didn't do. Now, personally, I like that there's multiple endings. It gives you some replayability, but I am who I am, and I'm probably going to choose the same decisions every time. And so I'm going to end up getting similar endings every time. But for my take, I think this is a beautifully done game. I think the miniatures are excellent. I think the resource pieces are phenomenal. It's really well done. I have no complaints about it. There's a fair amount of humor in the experiments. They're all called something kind of funny, so it's worth a few laughs. There's enough going on here that everyone feels like they're playing their own game. Again, there are certain decisions I made, and some of those decisions I made vaulted me on quite a few victory points. It's like, since I decided to do this action and I stayed steadfast in doing that action over and over, when it got to that part of the story, they're like, hey, since Jason did this, you get extra points. Bob made a decision that cost him points, and I don't know what those are determined on. And so, going through it, it's not like, oh, I'll avoid making that choice, And it's things you decided on in the first generation come back to get you in the third generation. Bob was the mayor of the town in the first generation, and the third generation got paid off for it. And so I really like the game. The story, in my opinion, is that this person definitely has a thesaurus out, and it's hard to read. There's a lot of words in it. I understand what they're going for thematically.
I think it's
difficult to read.
Written more as like an early 1900s, 18th century kind of novel. That's why.
It's a journal kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to read. It's very thick, and it's, if you play this game with younger people, they're probably going to get the gist of it, but they're going to burn on the reading real fast.
Unless they're very well read.
Yeah. Now me, I cut through the reading like it's no big deal, but people might have a problem with that. I think it's interesting what happens to the town as the game goes on. We did very poorly by the game's opinion the first time, and so the next map is like, look, all the buildings are gone. We have less options.
The church.
Yeah, the church backed up to the left. That tells you something. Anyway, go ahead, Bob.
You know what? I really did like it. I kind of feel like the story was a little extraneous. Like you really didn't need it. But it was good in the end game. It did. Some of the decisions that you made. I'm wondering if you can almost play it without using the app.
You're probably right. I was just laughing because he used the $5 word, which we just read over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So.
But otherwise, I really liked it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to earn your points. Of course, all the figurines are very detailed. I did like that. It is it can be slog, but I think once we got a hang of it, the second and third generations went through a lot faster.
Yeah, I agree with what Bob said about the story. I mean, it seems like the story just kind of goes on and on and on, and I wasn't too engaged in the story personally.
It is definitely a labor of love.
But, Jason was reading the story, so he was much more into it, and it's those story elements between the second and third generation. He got like 15 points based on the stuff that he had done in the story. So
I made it up.
I guess if Bob and I had been, really focusing on the story, maybe we would have, come out.
I guess it comes down a little bit for laziness. A couple times I could have read that, could have investigated, and I'm like, I don't want to spend the time to do that.
Well, there's going to be a spoiler alert. Here's where things shifted to my advantage, I would say, ever so slightly. There was a portion in the second generation where there were mystery buildings that popped up. And when you went to one of these mystery buildings, you were allowed to investigate the building, and your choice was to expose dirty dealings going on there or to keep it covered up. Every time I went to one of those buildings, I chose to expose it. And so the story at that point was, hey, since you're such a good guy working for this group trying to expose these things, here's your reward. And it was victory points. Now, you don't really know that either way, because the thing is, if one of the teams is voting to not expose and the votes don't add up right, then you might lose victory points. You might not gain victory points. I honestly don't know. But I chose it every single time I went. It's the same thing every time. Expose, expose, expose.
Yeah, I think at that point, when he got to that plot point, I had zoned out.
You zoned out of the story.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, I zoned out because the story was going on, but then we got to the point about, investigating the buildings. So I was sort of behind the curve on investigating these buildings, and I wasn't really,
now, how
maximizing
do you feel?
that.
How do you feel about the theme of the game minus the story? Did you feel like a mad scientist doing?
Yeah,
like
I
that.
thought that the game was a lot of fun like that. I mean, this game is, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And, we have to say, and I'll be the one to say it because everyone's going to agree. I mean, these pieces are just amazing. I mean, this is, these, this is real cork.
Real cork.
And this is, I mean, it's, is that?
It's acrylic.
It's plastic.
Yeah, plastic, but it's, you can really, fill these with stuff if you want. I mean, these coins are solid. They're solid metal coins. The
even these tokens are wood.
Those tokens are real wood. I mean, even these knowledge things, they're just basic cubes, and they're nice. But the detail that goes into these figures is amazing. The only thing I didn't like about the setup is that you have these trackers here, tracking like your knowledge. One little bump and
now I can't knock them down.
They don't stick in. They're very loose there.
Yeah.
But there's card holders and trays, and even the these cardboard tokens. I think were great. I mean, they're easy to read. The colors look nice. I've heard some people say that when you put a metal coin next to a cheap cardboard token, that it devalues the game. I don't think so at all. I think that these are a bonus, and these are as good as any other game.
The thing about that comment of, well, if you put cheap cardboard next to the premium pieces, it degrades it. Well, okay, fine, but do you want real animal corpses in your box? I mean, come on, you got to draw the line somewhere, and I think they're good enough. And here's the other thing, too. I mean, here's your estate upgrades. And they fit right in the slots.
Oh, yeah.
They fit right in the slots.
Nicely,
They're not sliding around. And while you're going to bump that and knock these over, which I did a bunch of times, you're not knocking that out of there. You're just not. And so that's
right.
That
And they
is
give
good
you the
quality.
handy little slots so you can pull it
Yeah,
out.
so I don't even got to wedge them out
or
and
use your
wreck it.
fingernail
Right.
and
Yeah.
damage it.
I mean, this spiral book here fits into the this little.
Yeah, you can slot it in there if you
channel
want.
there.
I don't, just because I don't want to bend the page, but it fits nicely on top anyway.
Yeah, this thing here, the insanity track, removes to flip over. I mean, it's just a very well thought out game, and it's the artwork is nice, but it's not overpowering. The pieces, you can see the pieces very easily. I think when we played, some other games like Horrified, or The Captain is Dead. Those are great games, but it's such bold design that sometimes your pieces, you might misplace them.
wander.
Wonder where they are.
I mean, it can be very busy, of course, and I tended to forget about the wild cards. So I looked, I wouldn't have been able to.
You wouldn't have been able to do it.
But if I would have paid attention to this early on, or my malady of extreme body hair early on, I could have resolved that with those.
That was the thing, Bob.
Yeah.
We all got a hereditary disease. Jason and I resolved ours. Bob did not, and it did come back to haunt you. I'm
Couple
wondering
times,
if that really cost you the game.
It did.
You know, I
It
might have.
probably did.
here's the thing too. We played all that time, 3 videos of at least an hour each, 3 rounds, totaling 9 rounds, lots of points, lots of different things, all independent thinkers making our own decisions, and look how close the game ended.
Yeah.
That's
It's
true.
not that far apart. I mean, in the second generation, I saw it. I know you, man. I saw your face, and it was
Yeah.
the face of, I'm out of this, and I'll play the rest, but
Yeah.
I know I'm done. But look what happened.
Well,
I mean,
right.
you finished last,
It was close, but,
But
I
it was-
knew I was going to finish
Yeah.
last.
but
yeah.
it was a lot closer than you thought it was going to be. It really was.
Possibly. Maybe I was closer to second place than I thought I was going to be.
Did you finish your masterwork?
No,
Look-
I didn't.
Yeah.
Bob and I did. I mean, and we didn't beat you by that much. So,
I was looking over at your yellow. I'm thinking, he doesn't have it.
I had one wild.
One wild.
Doesn't got it, man. Yeah.
A word on variety. There are different masterworks. I think there's about 10 here. No, I'm sorry. There's 8. So there's 8 masterworks. So you have that variety going for you. Obviously, the choices you make, they're sending the story in different directions. This is one of those games that, to me, it just feels almost infinitely playable. If you really truly enjoyed it, you could just play it and play it and play it, and
I
you're
think so.
not going to have the same experience even once. I prefer co-op games to competitive games for sure, but I really like this one, and I think the reason there is, in most in this as a competitive game, you really can't impact those around you.
Right, and it makes a bit of more like
Yeah.
There's not a lot.
It's more of
There's
a-
no gotcha in here.
It was a
I kept
PvE
waiting for
instead
that.
of a
Like, you're
PvP.
going to kill 2 of my servants or something.
Yeah, I hired assassin.
Yep.
There was one point in our playthrough that if you watch it, you'll see Bob did have a chance to do some significant damage to Jason's strategy, and he went another way, and it's all fine. It's the choices we make, but there's no gotcha in this game, and because I really can't think of anything that would be worse than to be working towards your master work, and then someone managing to undermine it on the last turn and take
Yeah.
it from you.
But see, if I went that route to stop him, I wouldn't have never been able to complete that.
There you go.
Because I needed the ingredients
There you go.
from that
And
one
it's
tile.
the choice he made, and the choice Bob had made was he could have purchased one of these structures that gave Jason an extra 8 points, but you went another way, and that's cool. You
Yeah.
know, that's what I don't like about competitive games. I don't like the gotcha. I don't like
Yeah.
I'm 95% of the way to my goal when someone chops out my legs and it costs me the game.
Although there is
Especially
some,
when you're not familiar with a game and you don't know.
Sure.
Somebody else go, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
yeah,
You don't know what's out there.
but it does happen sometimes because, like, if the creep meter and the angry mob meet, then
Yeah.
it's bad. There's just a few times where one of us sent the creep meter crashing into
I
another
was
player.
there
that
was
messed them
one
up.
thing. There was one choice I made. I wanted to send the angry mob over your guy because it would have hurt you bad, and I tried, but it took 2 votes, and Bob voted the other way. So I guess there's a little bit of gotcha here. It's not a lot, and it's certainly not the amount that's going to mess up your game. It is
Right.
worker placement. Which means if I got a guy here, it's going to cost you a coin to go there. But that's really the only penalty. And you had that one turn where you stack like all your guys on the same thing.
Yeah, desperate for one resource.
And it costs you money, but it's not so bad that it's like, well, there's a guy there, now I can't go there, I'm done. You know?
Right.
There always seem to be like options, and you went a completely different way. You went to build my estate and do my stuff that way. I didn't build my estate at all. And I was really lamenting that fact, probably not on camera. I'm like, man, I haven't built anything. And Jason's got this churn going of, here's a whole bunch of extra money. It's so.
He's the construction company.
Right. But overall, I think this is a very good game. It does have a high price tag, but the quality you get out of it, it's amazing quality. It really
Yeah,
is.
amount
because
of pieces, too.
I can't think of another game that has better quality pieces
Yeah.
in it.
I think this retails at about $125, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say you're not getting your value. That's for sure.
I was going to make one more comment back to the story-wise. If you're a D&D player, I think since you want that immersion in that story, I think this game would be perfect for a D&D player. And
I think the app gives you an option to have the app read, doesn't it? Or
It reads the beginning of chapters, and I think it reads the end. But I read faster than he does.
yeah, I would
Now,
advise you.
that was to your detriment.
Well, I would advise you, if you guys are going to play this game, focus on the story. I think that, like I said, Bob and I weren't really paying too much attention to the story. I think that it'll improve your tabletop experience, and two, it's going to give you some real clues as to what's going on, so you know kind of what you want to do to, because you know that victory points may come and go based on your decisions.
There's some underlying themes there that you can pick up if you pay attention.
I don't think it helped me at all, if that's what you're implying.
But it's true. I mean, like I said earlier, I could see you can almost play it without that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking as we went through. But then,
Yeah.
like I said, between the two generations where you got like 12 points or something, I mean, you won by 9. So that's,
That's the difference.
I mean,
Made-
instead of having the app, you could just have like a selection of cards that you flip randomly, and it'll say go to page 13 instead of
like a Gloomhaven. So.
yeah, instead of the app choosing that for you.
Don't get me started on Gloomhaven's scenarios.
But I mean, it was a great game, and like I said, the story didn't resonate with me, but I'm going to say that was probably my fault for not engaging with it. I mean, from the other reviews that I've seen on this game, you're not going to find anyone that's going to knock the story. The storytelling in this game is just top notch. And so
Perhaps I read it in my monotone voice. Easy to blank out. I recommend it.
Anytime he talks, I just zone out.
I'm going to
Anyways.
zone out anyways.
You know what that's like. Anyway, to sum up, I'm going to ask you again. Hey, like, subscribe, leave us a comment at the bottom. What did you think of this game? What do you think of the other scenarios? Now, I've played through them all. We only did one for the video. Do you want to see the other videos? We can do another 9 hours. But now, like, subscribe, tell your friends, comment on the bottom. Really helps out the channel. We got goals. We want to take you with us.
If anyone watched any of the playthroughs, my final thoughts on this game are more positive than you probably got the impression of watching the playthroughs, because I was sort of, focused on the goals, which I was not getting, in a lot of cases. So I think I was a little bit down on the game during the playthroughs, but this is a great game. I'd love to play it again for sure.
Yeah, the experiments.
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 All right, well, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.